It is your prisonplanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Another worldwide transmission against tyranny. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a jam-packed broadcast lined up for you. Congressman Walter B. Jones, who introduced the impeachment legislation, H-Con Res 107, in the House of Representatives, will be joining us for 30 minutes in the third hour to give us an update on that and to ask the question, why is the rest of Congress, other than he and a few others like Ron Paul, acting like potted plants while open, out-of-control, wholesale tyranny is engaged in? So that is coming up today with Congressman Walter B. Jones. Also, for 30 minutes in the second hour, former head of policy at the Department of Treasury, one of our frequent contributors and analysts, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, is going to be coming on to discuss the implosion of the euro by design and the Greek bank runs that are taking place right now. Again, I've had Max Kaiser, Dr. Tarpley first, really, 6-7 years ago saying this, Roberts, Bob Chapman especially, we got to get him back on. So many others, countless guests, my analysis as well, but Jim Tucker, that there was a planned implosion of Europe. The question is, have they overcooked the goose? Have they so debilitated the population and gotten them dependent and signed them on to so many thousands of trillions of fake banker debt that the parasite wanting to weaken the host has gone too far? Many an empire, including this new synthetic, corporate, fascist, cloaked, power behind the throne, creeping treachery conspiracy, has debilitated the system to such a great extent that it's imploding. So that is coming up. By the way, you know, I love the general statements by Miss America. If you want to win Miss America, you've got to endorse the UN as creating the planet Earth and loving all the little children and Tweety birds, too. And just being loving and sweet-sea cake and non-threatening, as non-threatening as Bill Gates wanting to give you a loving vaccine because he cares about you. Or, of course, he writes about wanting to reduce population through vaccines, but he's still a nice person. So his dad headed up Planned Parenthood and is a eugenicist. Never mind, he's got a shot. So in one country alone, his program giving people the polio vaccine has given 46,000 plus children last year. Different variances of being paralyzed. Doesn't matter. It's as non-threatening as Warren Buffett, another eugenicist, with an ice cream cone. Look, it's okay. He poses in photographs with ice cream. Could a man with an ice cream cone be bad? Certainly not. Side issue. The World Wildlife Fund, the UN, is always saying we want to tax the West and give it to big private bankers, of course. But they say, we want to tax you to help the little black people and others. We love them so much. And then 2 years ago, we got the Copenhagen Treaty, and it said right at double, just 1 point below double, the taxes on the third world that they'd have on the West. And the money wasn't going to go to build up third world countries and industrialize them. That, by the way, that would actually make them not have more kids if you think that's the problem. No. They have a better plan. They're going to shut your resources off and just let you have 10 kids, but have most of them starve to death. And the World Wildlife Fund, founded by the Nazi, Prince Bernhard, with the other Nazi, Prince Philip, big article by Paul Joseph Watson, World Wildlife Fund calls for global poverty to save the planet. But I thought the world government wanted to get the economy going. No. That's why they paid $20+ billion to build factories in China and move General Motors out of the U.S. because they really care about you. The government's good people, let me tell you. We'll be right back. transmission, ultra-massive payload of truth directed right at the mountains of steaming lies that spew out of the bottomless pit where the New World Order resides like a big diseased spider. And convicting Obama as the criminal globalist he is in the court of public opinion is going well. Oprah Winfrey now doesn't like Obama and his wife. Oprah Winfrey is rich and powerful, but I think is manipulated at many levels. I don't think she's purely evil, like teleprompter reader minion Obama and Michelle. So there's a big fight between those two. Also, it turns out the Kennedys don't like Obama and the Democrats because, well, they think they're selling out to the whole police state. That's in the news. So you've got these mainline idiot liberals who aren't total New World Order fascist. They're just not sophisticated enough to understand the larger program. That's why you've had Kennedys come out and criticize the vaccines and autism, and, you know, they don't support, most of them, the eugenics in Africa. They're just not smart. I mean, their great-granddaddy knew how to run hundreds of millions of dollars, and that was in 20s numbers, of liquor. They became very rich. They're just a mafia family who became, you know, supposed, trendies because they wanted to have civil rights. And that's why they killed JFK, because he was a real guy. He wasn't perfect, but he was a real guy. Side issue, that's in the news. It's not our top story by any means. I just thought I'd mention that. So I was talking about bottomless pit filled with New World Order spiders. We have Representative Walter B. Jones joining us, talk about getting more co-sponsors for his bill to begin the procedures for impeaching Obama for launching wars without congressional approval, clear violation of the Constitution. He'll be joining us for 30 minutes in the third hour. And, of course, Paul Craig Roberts on the accelerated, designed implosion of the euro as they snack on Ireland, Greece, then Italy, and then moving along into Spain and Portugal and other areas. And when you guys are ready with that, just give me a thumbs up. You guys going to give me a thumbs up? Just acknowledge you will. I'm not even going to air it now. It's just I want to know if we did have it ready, because I didn't know. I can hardly see through that glass, and I can see the thumbs up. Good. Thank you, Houston. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. And speaking of that, coming up, you know, I've heard this for years online, and I'm going to get Rob Dew to do an updated version with some new images for TV viewers of the nightly news every night at 7 o'clock. But we're going to air here on the radio Paul Harvey from back in the early 90s, a little piece he did called If I Were the Devil. And he shows amazing, of course, the late, great Paul Harvey, understanding and piercing knowledge that they want kids to be bad and out of control and tell parents not to raise their children or discipline them, so they become lawless, immoral creatures, to create a crisis in society so they can take some of them and make them immoral police and bureaucrats and enforcers, but then also take the others and use them to menace hardworking, moral people that have still hung on. This is an exact program. And I've always wanted to re-air this since Harvey died 3-4 years ago, and I've never done it. He died in 2009. So we're going to air that coming up at the bottom of the hour today. So that is what's coming up. Let me just do this now. Let me just read to you some of the headlines. The Washington Post admits that the West is funding real al-Qaeda in attacking Syria, and we have an article at Infowars.com linking to all the admissions, and that they're now moving al-Qaeda into Lebanon. Of course, there's real resistors to Israel. The media then calls that terrorism. Whether you support Israel or not, let's be honest. Anybody that even throws a rock in resistance is called a terrorist. So the point is, they're calling the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorists there. And they do engage in tactics that could be called terrorism. Well, they're sending in al-Qaeda now, I guess, to try to dig them out. My only point is, al-Qaeda is run by the West. I mean, that's a fact. They didn't just create it, they still run it. And I'm so sick of hearing how they saved me from this underwear bomber they got on the airplane, or the double agent CIA, oh my gosh, he infiltrated the bomb makers. You might as well watch Saturday morning cartoons. You'll get more reality than what you're being told. It's ridiculous, but that's in the news. Another report, U.S. and Saudi Arabia have hatched a backup plan to destroy Syria. We're going to be going over that. But in the biggest news, obviously, that we're going to be going over here today, big bank runs in Greece, spreading into the rest of Europe, and all the experts we've talked to, and my own common sense, and what the feds are prepared for, the so-called feds, the government managers for the bankers, the foreign banks that have hijacked the U.S. and captured us. I do come to you from behind enemy lines in occupied former republic of the United States of America, now Bankerstan. Our money, our taxes, our young men and women, I mean, we are the fuel of the New World Order. We're not the New World Order, we're the fuel, we're the food. But as long as they wrap tyranny in the American flag, most folks will salute it and go right down the rat hole. Coming up, we'll get into the Greek news, very, very important. And then we'll get into World Wildlife Fund calls for global poverty to save the planet. Oh, yes, this is the public statement UN, IMF, World Bank, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, State Department, Department of Defense, Club of Rome, Bilderberg Group, CFR, Trilateral Commission. They all make public statements. Their members do, or they put out official reports that they want a post-industrial world with high-tech government and corporate reservations where they fly above us in high-tech jet planes and helicopters and have life extension technology, and we're on the outside being pumped full of GMO and dying at about age 50, if they even allow us to breed. And why? Because that's what they like. Just like every feudal system enjoyed the serfs being a foot shorter. In Japan, a foot shorter. In China, a foot shorter. In Europe, a foot shorter. In every culture, in the Aztec kingdom, foot shorter. They even write little sonnets and poems about the little people. And they knew food was a weapon, so they would keep them on tiny pieces. A lot of the children will be stillborn or mentally retarded or have mental problems from lack of nutrition. This is just a gift from the sickening ruling class throughout history. Because sitting there in their castle, they don't like watching the beautiful maiden, the miller's daughter. They want to see her blind from simple mineral deficiencies. They want to see you diseased and stunted. The samurai, we're told, are so noble. They would get a new blade and go out into the rice paddies and find a peasant to exercise power and hack them up. Just as an exercise of power, so everyone could bend down and bow to them. This is what the control freaks like, okay? They love elitist walking around at a public event and looking at everyone they're poisoning and killing with soft kill and filling full of propaganda. They've just got you because you won't break the trance. They've got you right where they want you, and you won't break the trance, and it's funny to them. You know, I was invited to a South by Southwest party, and I didn't know, and they were saying, yeah, that's the president of Facebook. Yeah, that's the the former head guy of Napster. Aaron said, who was he? And showed me a photo, and I said, yeah, that's the guy. Mr. Parker, and he was running around crazed at the Four Seasons party we were at, and then I went to another party, and it was his party, and I think I know who these elitists are. I really, he's a billionaire, but I knew who he was, but I knew he'd been at Bilderberg, but didn't click till after. And he was running around all crazed, and I lifted my camera up, my phone, to shoot video, and Billy Corrigan reaches over and goes, don't do that. That's who took me to the party. But I've got to tell this story now. We've got photos of this guy at Bilderberg and all this stuff, and he admits he's CIA since age 16, and all of it is a front. I've got news articles about that today. Google, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter. I told you years ago they're all government fronts and gave you the evidence. And I had former top CIA technology analyst, Mr. Steele, on to break down the names of NQTEL and all the rest of it. And by the way, he got major heat for that and never came back on the show. He said, I got too much heat. Thanks for the opportunity to come back on. I'm not coming back on. That was like 7 years ago. By the way, try to get, forget his first name. Just type in CIA agent exposes Google, founded by CIA. It's something Steele. I want to get him back on. But the point is, his claim to fame is also he's like the biggest reviewer of books in the world, and he actually has that title. It's real. It's like the #1 reviewer of books. He reads the most books. Point is, I want to see if he'll come on now that it's all out in the open. He let this out on our show 7 years ago. I mean, I already knew it from just studying the attack pattern of the globalist. But here it is, The Hill. Senator Grassley wants answers on Google execs' air fleet leasing at NASA field. Well, yeah, their R&D facility is at a NASA base. Google was set up 12, 13 years ago by In-Q-Tel money. All of it. They were given the satellite systems. They were given the NSA world map systems. And this is ways they can have these front guys who then funnel the money to the proper banks and globalists, the real power elite, who are experts at not being revealed. But the whole thing, Twitter's now admitted run by the State Department and CIA. Facebook, you know, who the Zuckerman calls his users dumb idiots. Oh, our users think they can trust us. What dumb effers, you see. And later I'm going to explain why they're doing this, because they've got to control the internet, but they can't tell you it's government and banker. So all the stuff you think is private, it's not. It's government. We'll be right back. Well, we've got to face the new world order. I'm what's left, I'm what's right, I'm the enemy. I'm here to ask you, who are you? Who are you? So who are you? Which side do you stand on? There are a lot of ignorant people who think that if you serve evil, you get some type of dark power from it. There are people who do worship at the feet of darkness. But it's all about betrayal. It's all about failure. It's all about being cheated. The devil is the great cosmic con artist. And we're going to play from the archives, Paul Harvey of I Was the Devil, coming up. We're also going to get into FAA to ease rules for police agencies to fly unmanned drones, CBS News. And we have Steve Watson's article at Infowars.com and Infowars.net. Judge Napolitano, first patriot to shoot down a government spy drone, will be a hero. Blast illegal use of plastic drones to spy on Americans in their backyards. Yeah, it is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. But so is having private banks that take over the government through fraud, through espionage, through infiltration, while we're looking at the Ruskies and everybody else, and you know, that the bankers were funding at the same time. They took over with the national security state, and since then they control most of the drug trade, the sex trade, the gambling trade, all of it. They have taken this country from #1 to now a giant third world backwater, hated worldwide, and in total debt through fraud to them. We're like a beauty queen who's 18 and runs away from home when she gets out of high school, you know, runs away from the town, and you see her 3 years later with her hair falling out, cigarette burns all over, no teeth, walking around in Skid Row in Los Angeles with spit dripping out from the corners of her mouth, weighing 87 pounds. They're literal zombies. Where I grew up in Dallas, literal zombie creatures in Los Angeles. I've seen driving past Skid Row one time working on a film project. We went down there, and these people were gone. Black, white, Hispanic. And they look like zombies out of a movie. Black people with gray-green skin. You ever seen a crackhead? It's unbelievable. Just and no light in their eyes. White people with see-through skin. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a jellyfish. The white people look like these ghost jellyfish with like beyond white skin. You can just see all the veins under their skin. Just coming up to your car going, "I'll do anything you want for $5. Just horrible breath. Their eyes just gone. They're just fried from the chemicals they mix in to the cocaine when they mix it. It's not even really the cocaine. Totally dehydrated, given over to madness. And that's what our society is turning into. Back to the government drug dealers. Sorry, I don't even know where I just go back to the image of crack whores. Crack zombies is really what they are. And, oh, how America has gone from the beauty queen, first in everything. Now, we were first in everything good, now we're first in everything bad. And it's just getting ready to go to the next level. Because the New World Order is going to tell all the crackheads and all the welfare people and all the bureaucrats and all the cops and everybody who's dependent on the system that it's those of us that still produce, those of us that are still intelligent, those of us that still have souls, those of us that are still awake, those of us that have hung on, we're the enemy. Homeland Security's for us. And they are going to tell them, you're going to get the money and the bling and everything you want, go take those people out. And like zombies, they're going to march right into us. Sports fans are like zombies. They're not even men. They're not even like children. There's these fake Arrested Development people who just don't even like sports themselves, most of them. They just talk to you about it, thinking that they'll seem cool and get acceptance. And I'll just be sitting there on vacation, and people bring up football, and I go, you know what? Autism's gone from 1 in 25,000 to 1 in 58. And you know about cancer rates in children up over 10,000%? And they're like, whoa, dude, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, do you really like football like you're saying right now? Did you know in Rome, they had no liberty or freedom, but they could go watch their neighbors torn apart in the gladiatorial events, and next week it might be them, but they didn't care. Stop talking to me about sports. And a lot of times they'll go, actually, you're right, I kind of get your point. I mean, they're not even real people. They're just regurgitating. I'm sorry. We're going to come back, get into Paul Harvey, and then I'm going to get into all this news. And boy, is there a lot of it. Is there a lot of it. We got two big guests coming up, and we're going to look at the bank runs in Europe. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm crashing into everybody's little world here, but if we don't wake up and get out of the trance, the New World Order wolves are going to be able to tear our guts out. They've already killed hundreds of millions of people last century, and that was all just a build-up to what they got planned now. And they love the fact that people live in denial and think that their denial is a shield. Actually, denial is falling headlong into the pit, the shark tank, with these piranha-like creatures. So your ignorance is only hurting you. And I will assure you that if you'll take the challenge and research the claims we make here, you're going to find out that 99% of the time it's worse than we're saying. We make occasional mistakes. We always are more than happy to own up to them. The point is, we're trying to tell the truth. We're trying to come at things from a historical perspective. The entire InfoWars team and our wonderful activist listeners, who aren't just listeners, they're participants in taking action against the globalist. Now, coming up, Greeks have withdrawn now over $1 billion. It was 800+ mil yesterday. Greece on the brink of collapse, London Telegraph. Oh, where did I hear this 5 years ago, that Greece would be the first big place they took down after Ireland? Then it would be Italy, then Spain, then Portugal, then France, then Germany, then England, then the U.S. Oh, I seem to have heard the exact order from Bob Chapman and others on this show. Because it's a planned program. You know, we hear Bilderberg leaks going, oh, they want to meet about how to fix it. Yeah, they're going to be like, oh, gee, how do we fix the old lady we knocked over the head and stole her purse? That means when they say fix, it's like, that means how do we act like we're coming up with a solution that gives us more power on something we created? The austerity, we've got to raise your taxes to pay the money you owe, Greece. Turns out 90+%, just like Iceland and Ireland, is not owed by the people. They're criminal governments, all former Goldman Sachs execs, or J.P. Morgan, but almost all of them are Goldman Sachs, signed on to the derivatives debt. Oh, here, I signed you on to debt. That'd be like if I went out and bought a house and put 5% down on it, and then came to you and said, you owe me $300,000. You're like, I didn't buy that house. You did. It doesn't matter. I had the government say that you owe my debt now, and I'll send armed tax collectors to take the money. You're going to pay for my house. $300,000. You'd be like, that's insane. You bet it is. thousands of cases confirmed in court where major banks are taking houses that not only do they not have the deed to because it was sold in derivatives over and over again. The media tries to muddy the water like that. No. Where the house is totally paid for. In some cases, I saw a case where it had been paid for over 30 years and had been passed on by parents to their daughter. Been passed on, totally paid for, property taxes paid, private tax to the bankers as well. That's not constitutional. Only had that the last 60 years or so. And a big mega bank comes in and takes it. Or your house is paid for 11 years. And in that case in Florida, that I covered that because everybody's heard of that one. Bank of America never owned it. There was no deed. The people had the deed. They'd paid for it cash a decade plus before. What, 1.1 mil? Was it 1.2 mil? We could play that newscast. What was it titled? Bank of America foreclosed on. And because the court finally ruled because it was so obvious. Look, you took a house, wasn't yours, give it back, and they wouldn't. This went on for 6 months, so the local judge said, all right. In that case, it was constables said, go in there and go take the money out of the till. They went right in and took it. That's what the courts, if they serve the people and were just, would be doing across the board. And finally, the bankers called, his head office, and they said, okay, we'll write you the check. We'll write you the check, and we'll give you the house back. And then they signed the documents and handed it over right there. That's the criminality of what we're facing. It's just as insane, or even more so, when Obama says, no, Congress, I don't need to come to you to launch a war in Libya, Syria, anywhere else. And the Congress goes, well, yeah, you do. It's this article and that article, and it's the law, Constitution. And he says, no, I have the UN. And then he sends in surly Panetta with the generals who had the exact type of surly attitude that I've seen with 16-year-olds when they finally, Dad says, hey, carry out the trash. I've been working all week. You need to do something around here. And the surly 16-year-old just thinks their dad's being mean to them. Not that, hey, you're going to move out soon. You're going to have to carry out the trash all the time. You're going to have to cook dinner. You're going to have to clean the house. Hey, carry the trash out. The 16-year-old bucks up and is ready for a fist fight with Dad. It is that they have, I played that video over and over again on air. You got to go watch it. Remember about a month and a half ago where Panetta and them just have this arrogant, flippant attitude. And the generals are looking like wolves at those congressmen because they can go right into their tax accounts. They know what mistresses they've got. They've already reviewed, because it's a power trip, their phone records, what they're into, sexual dossiers. Oh, it's come out. The Pentagon can just dial right in your bank accounts, everything, your entire, where you've surfed, what you've done. They've got quick one-page pull-downs. They're looking at all these congressmen up there. And they got dirt on every one of them, or they'll plant it. If they don't have it, they'll just spoof it and put child porn on your computer. And they're sitting there like hardcore criminal gangsters, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Just political suck-up trash appointed by the criminal president. The Auslander, usurping, criminal, piece of trash, New World Order, puppet, teleprompter reading, traitorous, larcenous maggot that is teleprompter-in-chief Obama. And they're all in there. It's just so funny to the potted plants up there on the stage. And they kept saying, but you got to come to us to launch a war. And the generals' eyes would all get real stern. And I guarantee you they're thinking, little man, you have no idea the panopticon that's been built by the eugenicist. Because they've been let in on the big program at that level. You have no idea the decapitation space planes in orbit with DU, meteor guns, Sabo weapon systems. You have no idea we have... That's them thinking, the globalists. We now have discovered and developed antimatter weapons. We can blow the whole planet up. You have no idea the particle beam weapons we've got. You have nothing. You have no idea that flowing through your veins is sodium fluoride and hundreds of other chemicals and GMO designed for soft kill. We murder. We dominate. We have the power. When I was there at that elitist party, it was hundreds of people there, but it was like, president of this, president of that running around. They were all running around crazed on design or something, in my view. I'm sitting back because it's, just watching this spectacle as they hop around. And then every time somebody would say it's Alex Jones, introduce him, they would just totally just look crazed and then slap me on the shoulder and literally run off into the crowd. I guess that's the trendy thing. When they're like, hey, this is Alex Jones, and here's the billionaire guy, and it's the globalist, and they just like, just crazed. I mean, let me try to give you the crazed look. I can't even do it. Just like, I'm crazed. Just full will to power. The planet's mine. We're poisoning everyone. And the public has no idea. Nothing can stop us. And you just want to be able to reach out to people. You just want to wake up humanity, your fellow humans who you love. You want good for humanity. You want to go to the stars. And you look at the horrible demons that we've let take control. And how they've sold us on torture and secret arrest and all the corrupt things that people think is manly now. All the cop shows where they torture people and butcher the Bill of Rights and celebrate it's the right thing to do. And boy, they get the job done. And the Arrested Development and the way they've got men acting, the way they have women acting, and people all petty and all these petty trendies of every type, who are all on these private power trips themselves about how they're winners and they don't care what you think because they've got a high image of themselves. But it's a fake image. They're the opposite of humble. People would take my aggression and resistance as arrogance or ego. It's the opposite. It's just desperate, cornered animal scratching and squealing like a cornered raccoon trying to warn other raccoons, don't come this way, you're going to get grabbed. You know what I mean? Or a cow in a slaughterhouse chute. And I've gotten down to the end, and I see those big gas bolts slinging down and hitting those cows in the head, and the big machines grabbing them by the legs and dragging them up, and a big old razor blade comes in and slits that throat, and I see blood shooting out all over the place. That's the analogy. And I'm like, man, you don't want to go down this road. But see, I'm not a cow. I'm Homo sapien sapien in the image of my Creator. My progeny, your progeny, is meant to go to the stars. We are only in an embryonic phase right now, and I don't want a cancer of malfunctioning, twisted, dark side people to be able to take control. I know men and women of goodness are much stronger and more powerful than these little rats. But the system has sold the idea that evil is going to give people power and beguiled and seduced people into it. And the deeper you get into evil, the weaker you get, and the more pathetic and the more insecure. And then you think if you just get into deeper evil, you'll find the power you were promised. Evil is a con game. There's nothing but destruction and shame at the end of it. You will not be fulfilled by it. Don't you understand that? Cowardice and weakness and envy and all of it will only bring you down. And I thought, this is what billionaires do? This is what, a helicopter ride, the best women, palaces. If you don't have an appreciation of what's good, it's all a dungeon. But people who've never seen it or had access to it have no idea. They all think it's that unknown country. And the system dangles the baubles and Kim Kardashian and Justin Bieber out in front of you as if they are living in some Valhalla world. I mean, there's not many people in Hollywood bigger than Charlie Sheen over the years, but I have met and gotten to know people as big or even bigger who don't go on record on this show, and they are miserable people. They are unhappy people, and the only ones that are happy are those that have found reality and now know it's all baloney. Those of you that think you're not adequate because you're not flying around in helicopters or because you're not having sex with Kim Kardashian, ladies and gentlemen, I'll guarantee you Kim Kardashian would be hell on earth to live with and would be terrible, her lifestyle, with all those empty people. You're in a room with empty people like that, you can feel it. You can feel it. There's no oxygen in the room. And let me tell you something. You find some good old-fashioned country people who are Christians but aren't throwing it in your face and sitting around on the back porch while grandma snaps the peas and cooks them for dinner. That's where you're going to feel a soul. That's where you're going to feel fulfilled. That's where you're going to feel strength. When you see people, activists out there confronting the globalist by themselves with a sign on the side of the street, you go up and talk to that person. You go out to dinner with that person. You get to know that person. That's somebody who's got deep living water flowing through them. That's somebody who's tied in to the life force of the entire universe and everything that's decent. Evil is not going to fulfill you. I I got a lot of news I want to cover. On Google, the admitted government front run by the NSA that came out in the news this week, they said, yeah, it's NSA, but courts rule it can stay secret. Yeah, they're at airfields with NASA. Yeah, these guys are all just front people to make it look sexy for the kids, to make the new tech people rock stars, to be a distraction for the NSA globalist banker program. Yeah, they're all eugenicists. And see, that's the enjoyment. They love the fact that they can see and everybody else can't around them. But as soon as you can see, they're like a vampire at high noon, hauled out and hammered up to the mast. It's like a vampire in the middle of the ocean, nailed to the top mast, folks. There's nowhere they can go. They're in a sea of consciousness, surrounded by water. In the noonday sun, they burn away. They are weak, and it takes their power when you're not scared of them anymore and when you see what they are. Tumors. Big, stinking, pus-filled, reeking tumors. They're tumors, and all they want to do is kill you. All they want to do, they've already lost. All they want to do is drag you into their rat hole with them. Remember that. I want to go to this short piece. This is Paul Harvey, and then I have comments after it airs. This is Paul Harvey on If I Was the Devil, and this was recorded back in 1993. I believe we'll have it up on screen for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. Think of how much of this has now come true. Think of what we've become. Think of how we bought into globalism. I didn't, but a lot of people did. And where'd the prosperity go? It was all lies. You going to buy more lies from liars? Paul Harvey, If I Was the Devil.
If I were the devil. If I were the devil. If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. Thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey. Good day.
1918, 2009. He recorded that back in 1993. And I wish we had a better recording of it. That's the best we could find on YouTube. We're going to try to mess with the audio, make it better for the Nightly News this evening. By the way, we have something really special Friday on the Nightly News. I'm just going to leave it at that. Something very special on the Nightly News. And no, it's not Dave Mustaine. He's going to be in town too. Mike did an interview with him and have that Monday. Or maybe Friday. But the point is, I've got something really special. It is special when we have Dave on too, or any of the other great guests we have. But something special Friday that we've put a lot of work into. Something new we're developing here at Infowars.com. And if you think this show is going to be Powerful Friday, wait till you see what we do in 2 weeks. That's at prisonplanet.tv. There's a 15-day free trial at prisonplanet.tv right now. We do have Dr. Paul Craig Roberts coming up at the 5 after break on the Euro, so I will just cover that right now. But I thought that I would first plug a few things here on air. Might as well. I just skipped the network break anyways. I do that a lot. Boy, let me tell you, that causes a fracas. See, I'm one of these talk show hosts who actually wants to skip the breaks. Most people are leaning on the microphone, leaning on callers, leaning on guests. I want to fight tyranny so bad, which is just a normal instinct for me, I guess it should be for everybody, that I could go for 10 hours here on air. But I don't, because I degenerate after a while and it's bad radio, but enough about that. I just believe in total transparency. That's why I'm always talking about what I do, what I'm thinking. I'm trying to get you to walk through my thought processes so you can understand from my research perspective where we are. And I found that by doing that, if you can get in my shoes, I can get in your shoes, and we can really look at this through the same eyes. Or close to it. Every day, the crew says, Alex, it's unbelievable, it's all confirmed, and brings me more news, just confirming our worst fears. It's to intellectually know this is one thing, but this is so sink your teeth into it. This is so real. We're alive on a gorgeous planet, hurtling through space with wonders all around us. The cell has millions of different things a day going on in it, incredibly complex. The human eye, the fact that we see a sunset and beauty and can recognize it and resonate with it. The fact that all around us are wonders. I can't believe how innocent and good and loving my children are. I can't believe how good other people are. I can't believe how good their children are. I can't believe how much good there is in the world. It's amazing. But the sad part is good is so humble that until it gets in a really bad situation, it doesn't stand up. And the globalists know that. They know we're going to stand up to them, and we know we already are. We are already standing up to them, but they know we're really going to step up to the plate. And so they call it the final revolution against humanity, the dictatorship over humanity. And they want to overthrow what it is to be human itself. The globalists believe this ultimate tyranny will allow them to mass cull the majority of us, and that they are then going to have access to the life extension technologies where they can already make a human live double long. That's admitted. They can make rats live 3 times as long. And that's just in 2012. They don't want you to have access to that. They don't want to industrialize the third world and educate them and empower them. And then they would actually have only 1.3 children like we do. And that would fix the population problem, even if you believe that. That's what's even sick about it. They're doing all this horrible stuff, and they're mid-level servants of the eugenics army. There's millions of them who'll say, yeah, okay, so what? We're killing third world people. So what? They're jacking the food in the water. And I'm like, they're doing it to you too. Plus, they're not even actually trying to build up the third world. It's all these yuppies and hippies. they'll say to you, these fake hippies, these trendy hippies, they'll say, oh, yeah, we're going to make everybody be on the buses and the trains, and we're going to shut down society and bankrupt the free market, and then the highways will be wide open for us to drive on them. That's how they talk. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he brought up people he knows that are like that, and that's their idea. They think that because they've bought into this evil system, that somehow that gives them power. I've had military officers and others, and I've had rich people as well, very wealthy people say, okay, Alex, 9/11 probably is an inside job. What are you going to do about it? That's how stuff gets done. You know, the elite knows what they've got to do. The Muslims are a problem. They're going to end up taking over. So what? That's the hard decisions you make. And I'm like, are you really going to blow up the little kids that were visiting their parents that day? You know, okay, you admit eugenics is going on, and you think there's too many black people. And that they're racist and out to get you or whatever. You know, that's your idea. Are you going to line up those little black kids and shoot them in the head? That's what all the new Black Panther Party saying, kill even the white babies because they're the devil. Are you really going to kill that white baby? You know, the people that are always pushing this stuff, I'll guarantee you couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. People that think it's funny that for 200 years they bring in liquor to the Indians to get them drunk and control them, just like they bring drugs into the inner cities to control people. You think that's cute? You think it's funny? All that stuff blows back on you. All of it blows back on everybody. All right, I'm going to come back and get into the whole Greece meltdown. We've got our guest coming up on that. It is big news. Runs on banks, you name it. Before I end this hour, we've got the best price on the best side-by-side comparison. No other gravity-fed filter can stack up against it. InfoWarsShop.com is the easiest way to find it, or InfoWarsStore.com will also get you there. Link to the shopping cart link at InfoWars.com. And we've got 10% off all the ProPure products, the shower filters, the fluoride filters. It's the best stainless steel gravity-fed system. Stainless steel spigots, not junk plastic. Not, you know, junk filters. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just that there's a lot of crud out there, I'll be quite honest with you. And ProPure is the best I've found. And great, folks. They get it out to you quick. You can get 10% off at InfoWars.com. You're not going to find a lower price anywhere. InfoWars.com or InfoWarsShop.com. In preparedness, you got to have a water filter first. We're doing research right now on the best field filters. We'll be carrying some soon from another dealer. InfoWarsShop.com. It also supports us. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former Wall Street Journal editor, head of policy department of the Treasury, is going to be joining us coming up in the next segment. And I've got the headlines here in front of me. It was 894 million euros yesterday, MSNBC reports. Now it's over $1 billion today. Greeks rush to the banks. Lines form at ATMs. Nearly $1 billion withdrawn in past week. It's even more than that now. That's all up at Infowars.com. The bank run in Greece will soon be followed by bank runs in other European nations. That came out yesterday, and now it's been confirmed. Italy's bank shaken as economic slump deepens. It's beginning there as well. Merkel and Hollande spell out Greek fear. The answer is just give more money to the bankers who created the derivatives and robbed everyone and shipped the jobs out of the country. Gotta love how they paid billions of dollars to ship the Cadillac and Volt factories to China. Man, I tell you, we got some traitors running this country. Well, they're not traitors. They got investments with the Chi-Coms. Why not leave? Why not? I mean, the public will pay for it. I mean, there's nothing American people don't like. They are launching the drones everywhere. Judge Andrew Napolitano says first patriot to shoot down a government spy drone will be a hero. That's coming up after Dr. Roberts leaves us in about 30 minutes. Here's another headline. Greece faces stark election choice, in or out of the euro. Our Bilderberg source. And yes, we were able to get the code name, the Palm Tree Conference. Nobody's ever done that, gotten the code name. Oh, yes, they're really freaked out. We've confirmed that they're worried about too fast of an implosion of the euro, that they wanted to implode it into a super European Union and claim that they were the saviors. But they're worried that too fast of an implosion, that the Greeks will exit, devalue, jump back on their feet, say no to the derivatives debt, call the bluff of the bankers like Iceland did, and have a rebound. And then they won't be able to implode country after country, pose as saviors, bring in fascism. Corporate crony, monopoly men, garbage. Oh, yes, I just have one. I have two sources inside Bilderberg now. Boy, you better believe my phones are tapped. Oh, I'm told they are hopping mad. And, you know, we had that whistleblower on yesterday, the contractor, about how they're training the Merc groups by name, shifting from fighting Arabs to the American people. And they're really upset that we got the secret document about the re-education camps for the American people that the government, as the Army admitted, is now real. Of course it was real. Where do you think we got the document? From the Easter Bunny? Just like people couldn't believe the MIAC and Homeland Security reports that we got, where they said veterans, gun owners, Ron Paul supporters, get us out of the UNers. Libertarians are the #1 threat and terrorist. Remember, that was 4 years ago now, and people couldn't believe it. And now it's all over the news. They say the new threat is homegrown people. And in the training manuals, it's a guy with a beard and a John Deere hat, literally in the manuals, that look like Hank Williams Jr. You're the enemy. You're the bad guys because you don't want to be run by Goldman Sachs. What's The Economist magazine brag about? They say the U.S. has been captured by Goldman Sachs. They say Europe's been captured. They say Goldman Sachs coup over Europe. Oh, aren't we lucky we've got technocrats who engineered all this, but they don't mention that. In charge. But most of the experts we talk to, and my own bearing on this, my own dead reckoning, guesstimation, and from reading what they're saying and what they're doing, is they've been so good at robbing and stealing and selling out and profiteering and scalping and gutting that they're not going to be able to control this. It is out of control. In fact, the leaks we get and what they publicly say at Davos is that they know it's out of control, and they know they're going to get in trouble. That's why Goldman Sachs people are all getting bodyguards and arming themselves, Bloomberg reported. Well, no amount of mercenaries will keep you from being brought to justice. You're not going to win. Welcome back on this live Wednesday edition worldwide transmission. Thank you for joining us. Coming up in 30 minutes of the next hour, we're going to have Congressman Walter Jones, who's introduced the legislation to impeach Obama if he launches new wars without congressional approval. It's starting to get some co-sponsors like Ron Paul and others. We're going to get an update from him and more. Now we're joined for the next 30 minutes by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former editor and columnist for the Wall Street Journal, columnist for Business Week, Scripps Howard News Service, father of Reaganomics, head of policy under Ronald Reagan at the Department of Treasury, best-selling author, listed as Who's Who in America, and he joins us now. He's a top economist, and he has been breaking down here on the air the fact that this will only implode. The question is when? That we're deindustrialized. There can be no real recovery, and that Europe's melting down, the U.S. is melting down. Now, this has been done, and you can either say it's by design or not. The point is, the people running things are the ones that literally engineered it. I mean, the exact same crew going back to Clinton and others. And so now there's over 1 billion, as of today in the last week, lines, bank runs in Greece, spreading to Italy. I went over those headlines in the last segment. They're all up at Infowars.com. I wanted to get Dr. Roberts on about this, but then in the second half of the interview, the police state, the re-education camp documents, the NDAA, just the insanity of what we're witnessing. What does the ruling class think they're going to do? I mean, totally wreck the country as if that's going to give them security? This is madness that's going on. So Dr. Roberts joins us, and we'll also give you his website, so get a pen and paper ready for that. Dr. Roberts, so what do you make of what's happening with the euro right now?
Well, I think what's happening in Greece is the population expects Greece to be kicked out of the EU or to pull out, one or the other. And when that happens, it means the Greek currency will be devalued. It'll come back into existence, but it'll be devalued, and so it means the euro value of the new currency will be a fraction of the value of the current euros that they hold. So they're trying to get those euros now so that they don't lose their money to devaluation. I think that's what that is about. I don't think they're afraid of bank failure or the bank closing the doors. They expect that if Greece exits the EU, then it has to exit the euro. And when it does that, the new Greek currency will not be worth, they won't get an exchange rate that reflects their value of their current holding. So they're trying to get the stronger money now while they can. I think that's what's going on there. I wouldn't expect that to spread to other countries unless they also fear being ejected from the EU and losing the euro as their domestic currency. That doesn't mean there are not a lot of problems in Europe, and it doesn't mean that they have a handle on a fix.
Doc, a lot of the experts we have on pretty much agree that whether it's Max Kaiser, Bob Chapman, countless others, people like Faber, that if the euro starts unraveling, which now even Bloomberg and others are saying could happen, that it's obviously then going to have repercussions here. And they say within a few months, it's going to really show the fact that the dollar has been devalued and that's going to accelerate. I mean, what do you expect to see? Because you always make the point that because of deindustrialization, especially here in the U.S., we're technically even worse off than Europe. So why are we seeing this in Europe first?
I think because of the sovereign debt problem and because of the fact that Europe does not have a central bank that can create credit for the governments. The European Central Bank is prohibited by its charter and by the agreement that set it up between the countries from purchasing the sovereign debt of the member states. Now, it's starting to do that in these various schemes to keep Greece afloat, but it can't just simply do like the Fed and just monetize whatever debt needs to be issued. You see, the British can do that because they have their own central bank, and the bank can extend unlimited credit to the government. It can simply monetize an unlimited amount of debt, and that's what the Federal Reserve has been doing. That's what quantitative easing 1 is about, quantitative easing 2, and in my opinion, it's what they're still doing. It's how they keep the interest rates at zero or near zero. They simply purchase all the debt that would otherwise raise the interest rates. Well, in Europe, they can't do that. The individual countries don't have central banks that can serve as creditors to the government, and the European Central Bank is restrained by charter from doing that, and they haven't loosened those handcuffs yet.
And wasn't it the Germans that demanded at the offset of the or the onset of the euro that be done because of their Weimar Republic experience with super hyperinflation and the wheelbarrows to buy a loaf of bread?
That's right. This was imposed by Germans as a condition for the EU. They didn't want to lose their own currency over which they had control and a great deal of fiscal or monetary, and we'll put it, discipline. And they knew that some of the other countries, in fact, almost all the other countries, lacked that discipline. And so that was the only terms on which they agreed to become part of Europe.
But if Greece leaves, doesn't that do it anyway? So what's going to happen? I mean, the word is Greece is going to end up leaving the euro, or do you disagree with that?
I don't know whether that's the case or not. You have to keep in mind, Alex, that it's in the interest of Wall Street and the investment banks and the hedge funds to create hysteria about this, because they make huge sums speculating off the hysteria that they get the financial press to create.
And they have the inside knowledge on where it's going to go.
Well, they may or may not, but they can at least make money off of hysteria. And also, it's in Washington's interest, because if the euro is in trouble, it takes pressure off the dollar. it strengthens the dollar because people say, oh, well, we better get into the dollar. We don't know what's going to happen to the euro. And when they go into the dollar, this also depresses gold and silver prices, which is also in Washington's interest. That also takes pressure off the dollar.
Sure.
It's like you said, and as I've said for many years, the dollar is even in worse shape, but it's not in focus. What's in focus is the euro. And so this helps Washington. And so Washington keeps this hype going as well. So, but between the interest of the investment banks and hedge funds in speculating against sovereign debt and against the euro, and between Washington's interest in having the euro in trouble because it helps the dollar, you get a lot of spin and hype, and so you can't know whether Greece is going to leave or not. It will really be a political decision. It'll be made by Germany and France primarily, and they will decide whether or not they want to reform the EU and get rid of some of the weaker elements that result in these kinds of problems, or whether they want to pay the cost of keeping Greece in. I don't think that decision has been made.
Sure. Now, that's why Merkel and the new French president, Hollande, met yesterday, and most of that they're keeping under wraps what they're planning to do. But let's expand on something. What do you make of Jamie Dimon running around and just saying, oh, $2 billion lost, that's just an accounting procedure? What do you make of the overall financial structure? What's the prognosis right now on the ongoing rotting of the world financial system?
You know, I don't think the United States financial system any longer performs a useful social function. I think it's just a deadweight cost to society, because all the American financial system does is produce a massive financial crisis that causes a huge expansion of debt and money to keep their balance sheets afloat. And this crisis was exported to Europe and is part of the trouble there. So I just don't see that there's any reason to continue to tolerate the private American financial system. It's become a great threat to the economic future of the country. It performs no useful social function. It creates fraudulent assets. The participants in these markets apparently have no integrity. You see them actually doing things that in past decades they would have been arrested and imprisoned for. So what is their function? They've taken the financial system and turned it into a gambling casino. And even they can't win. That's why you see J.P. Morgan losing $2 billion. They don't even know what they're doing. And the whole thing should just be closed down and reformed. And also, the concentration is far too extensive now. The size of these banks.
That's right. They're monopolies or duopolies, oligopolies, lecturing us about the free market all day. And they've done all this through government licensure, allowing them to do this, shutting down their competition. Stay there. I want to finish up on that point and then get into the police state you've been writing a lot about at paulcraigroberts.org. I'm Alex Jones. The system is broken. And Dr. Roberts, before we went to break, former head of policy of the Department of the Treasury, Wall Street Journal editor, formerly a best-selling author. Again, paulcraigroberts.org. I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com. But you were bringing up the lawlessness, and there's so many examples. Again, Obama launching wars. Congress says you got to come to us. That's law. I mean, it's treason if you don't. He just says, I'll do what I want. Joint Chiefs say the same thing. We've got MF Global. Billions disappear, hundreds of millions still not paid back. He gets caught lying. The head of the CME group, Duffy, won't lie for him. It's confirmed that Corzine lied. Doesn't get in trouble. I mean, this is reaching new levels. What does this signify? That they can just do anything? Why are they doing this? You worked inside the government. I mean, you know some of these people. Dr. Roberts, what is happening?
Well, Alex, I don't think that it's a plan that is unfolding by the elites. As you said, I know many of the elites. They're not as smart as I am or as you are or as many of your listeners are. And they may have some kind of plan, but it'll have far more unintended, unexpected consequences than they can imagine. And so they won't be in control, and they'll panic. And what will happen will be something totally different from any plan that they might have.
And that's what history shows with the Germans, the Romans, the Russians. These guys are megalomaniacs, so where do you see it going?
Well, I think what's happening is accountability is leaving the elites. It left the government. You know, it left the government a long time ago. Abraham Lincoln got rid of accountability. You know, he even exiled a member of Congress. He put 300 newspaper editors in prison. The assault on government accountability is old. And it's gotten worse because of the war on terror, because so many people now simply assume that the government needs to be able to do extra legal things, extrajudicial things in order to deal with terrorists. And as I have said so often, where are these terrorists? How come they don't ever do anything? How come the only terrorist plots are the ones that the FBI dreams up and orchestrates? If there were terrorists, how come so many terrorist enemies walk around safe with no attempt on their lives? So, but it's propaganda that works, and so people say, "Oh well, we can't make the government behave legally and constitutionally because we have this terrorist threat, and they have to deal with that." That's part of it. The other part is the elites themselves, the private sector elites. They have benefited for the last 10, 20 years from the sort of free market utopia that social perfection is the absence of regulation, and the absence of regulation means the absence of accountability. So if you're not accountable, then you behave as if you're not accountable. It changes the behavior and attitude and outlook of the elites themselves. So I think those are part of the explanation of what is going on.
Very well said. Let me ask you this question. We are seeing, and I've got contractors, I've confirmed it, but it's also in the news, they're flipping from fighting foreign Muslims to good old boys, conservatives, libertarians, people that know what's going on. And this is actually waking the police and military up. I mean, I've been having them on the show. But why is the elite getting their domestic control system really ready right now? Are they concerned about a collapse?
I don't know. I doubt it. I think they have too much hubris. I'm not really on good terms with them anymore, and so they don't confide in me. But I doubt that it's that. I think what it is that it's the impetus from the bureaucracy itself. I mean, Homeland Security is what, an $80 billion institution? This is huge. And since there aren't any real terrorists to justify their existence, they've never caught a single one, have they?
No, they're just going to make us that because they can expand their mission now.
Well, I think it's to preserve the mission that, the head of Homeland Security, she said this a year or two ago, that they were shifting their focus from terrorists to domestic extremists.
Stay there, Doctor. All right, Dr. Roberts is with us another 10 minutes or so, and then I'm going to open the phones up on any of the news I've covered until the end of the hour. And then we've got Congressman Jones joining us, Representative Walter Jones. You don't want to miss that information. going back to Dr. Roberts, who studied history, because I've read several of his books, he knows what he's talking about, and also obviously studied the economy as a top economist, that elites act the same throughout history. And just because they've got NSA-run Google and they've got high-powered atomic weapons and hydrogen bombs doesn't mean they're not still the same people. And they just think they can get away with all these things they're doing. And the truth is they've made themselves unaccountable, so now they're unaccountable to even sanity. And just like every other out-of-control elite does this in every culture, they are like Kublai Khan trying to invade Japan, or Hitler or Napoleon going into Russia. They are biting off more than they can chew, because you can be the toughest guy around, but you mess with the wrong guy on the wrong day, they're going to, or you mess with them when they got their kids with them or something, you're not going to be able to stop them. So people always think they're bulletproof and invincible, especially these people that crave power and domination. They got a screw loose. They're able to get the power because they'll cheat and steal, but then once they get it, they end up destroying themselves and a bunch of us in the process. So Dr. Roberts is making the key point here. The bureaucracy and the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about is eating our country and the rest of the world. And so you've got the bureaucracy, you've got the elites that think it's going to protect them. But just 101 in every culture, even in modern times, in Africa, Latin America, Asia, Eastern Europe, you always build a secret police network. It always starts spying on the parliament or the government. It always starts killing people and abusing. And a lot of times, oh, here's the new president, general whoever. 6 months later, he gets overthrown. This is the last system. If I was an elite, even if I was evil and corrupt and sadistic and on a power trip, the last system I would want, Dr. Roberts, is what they're putting in. I mean, can you elaborate on that? I think that's where you're going with this, and I think that's why you make the point that you don't think the elite are driving all of this.
Unintended consequences of the elite, as well as some of the intended ones. You see, they're not just eating the country, and they're eating the Constitution. So when you eat the Constitution, you don't have any protection either. You might remember the play, A Man for All Seasons, when Sir Thomas More, the Chancellor of England, he says, so you want me to cut down the law so we can more easily chase after devils? And what will we do when the law is cut down and the devil turns on us?
Yes.
So it's what the Bolsheviks found out. That's what the Politburo found out. They were powerless in the face of Stalin. There was no longer any law. There was only the decision of the General Secretary of the Communist Party. So this is, the elites are preparing their own grave, you're right. But come back to the question of the shift from focus on terrorism to domestic extremists. This is also part of the elite agenda, because who are the domestic extremists? For example, it's environmentalists who get in the way of fracking operations, of blowing up mountains to get coal, of putting mining ventures next to national monuments and parks, of polluting waters in the Gulf of Mexico. These people are inconvenient for powerful mining timber groups. You have other people who are in opposition to Monsanto's genetically modified seeds. They're in the way. You have prophets. You have animal rights people who say animals are living creatures. They shouldn't be treated in inhumane ways in these experiments where you do all these testing, and they're in the way of the drug companies, the testing companies. So all these kinds of people are in the way. In fact, sooner or later, you and I will be in the way, because we don't speak the line. You don't speak the line, you're in the way. So they can use terrorism. That came out of 9/11. They can use the fear of that to expand it into attacks on all critics. And that's what I think Homeland Security is becoming. And you see, why else is Homeland Security stopping traffic on the interstates or going to bus stations and train stations, there have been no incidents, not even staged FBI instances.
It's a total raw exercise of power to set the precedent.
It's getting us used to it, accepting of it. And you have to understand that the young, they don't even know the old system. They only know what they experience now. So to them, it's just normal. If you get, you just got your driver's license, you've not been driving. You're driving along the interstate and everything's stopped and they're inspecting you. Well, it's all you know. You grew up with it. So you don't know it's a police state. It's just what you know. You're not 40, 50 years old, and you don't remember when something like this would have been inconceivable. So I think that's what's happening to us. And another thing that's happening is, you see, I think the war on terror is wearing out for them. It's been very profitable, but they don't win the wars. You see, if you're a superpower and you have to be in Iraq for 8 years, and the only way you can win is to put the insurgents on the U.S. military payroll and pay them to stop fighting. And if you're in Afghanistan for 11 years and you can't defeat a few thousand Taliban armed with AK-47s, then your whole reputation as a superpower starts evaporating.
So they've now announced they've beaten al-Qaeda. They're using al-Qaeda in Syria and also in places like Libya, just admitting it. Oh, this is the good al-Qaeda. That's why we stick our hand. Yeah.
They got to have a new enemy, and so it's going to be China.
Oh, yes. And the American people, though, if we're getting out of line, because they're saying we've won the war against al-Qaeda, and as you said, now let's have a war with China. Break that down.
Well, they don't want a real war. They want a Cold War. See, the most profitable conflict was the Cold War with the Soviets, because everybody knew they weren't going to fight it because there wouldn't be anything left. But the Soviet threat was good for 4 or 5 decades of unlimited military spending, of unlimited CIA power. And the war with the hot war in the Middle East, it's not working for them. It hurts their reputation. It demoralizes the troops. Look, the suicides exceed the battle casualties. So they got to have a new Cold War, and the only real person they can pick on now is China. And that's why we had the naval exercises with Philippines a week or so ago. That's why we're building a new naval base in South Korea on an island. That's why we're sending Marines into Asia and Australia. That's why Hillary Clinton declared the South China Sea to be an area of American national interest.
Sure, the Chinese president said 2 months ago, he said, prepare for war with the United States. Yeah. They're encircling us, but separately, then they pay with a bailout to move the Cadillac and Volt factories over there, and separately let them buy up our infrastructure. I mean, is that part of a double game?
Well, I think it's 2 different interests. See, the choice of them as an enemy is new. The choice of them as a low-cost source of production is 10, 20 years old, and that benefits manufacturers. But the military security industry needs an enemy. So there is a conflict there between 2 powerful interest groups in the United States, but they'll keep it a Cold War. They don't really want a hot war with China. I mean, that's not what they want. They want a long-term threat that they can continue to spend unlimited money on airplanes like the F-22, which their pilots are afraid to fly, and which have now been grounded. They don't care. They don't want a real war. They want a long-term Cold War because they can forever hype the Chinese threat as to why they got to have a bigger defense budget and more power. So I think that's where it's moving, and that's why they're kind of shifting the emphasis. Now, the problem with them getting away from the Middle East is Israel, because Israel's still determined that they attack Syria and Iran. And if Israel succeeds in having us attack Syria and Iran, then we may never get out of the Middle East, or we may come heads to head with China and Russia in a hot type of conflict.
Basically, you and I and others, Ron Paul, we're in the way of their madness and the grave the ruling class is trying to dig for themselves. And as you point out, they have Bilderberg meetings and things and come up with general plans and argue with each other. But I see it everywhere where there are different special interests, sometimes even different divisions of the same big companies are at odds with each other. It really is just a bunch of people running in all directions, stealing everything they can.
Right. And also, you see, they now have the country at odds with itself. There's so much hatred of Americans against Americans, and Democrats and Republicans, and right-wing and left-wing, and Christian Zionists and non-Christian Zionists. I mean, it's just an endless... So we are as split among ourselves as the Romans were in their last years. And so a country that internally split, and also now increasingly fearful of their own government, is not a very strong country to be taking on China and Russia. So I think they're headed for a lot of surprises, and I don't know when the dollar goes or when the power of the United States collapses. I don't know when it's going to happen, but nothing that they're doing really furthers our future success. It's all at the expense of our future success.
That's the key. What the globalists, what this group of criminals are doing is wrecking the United States. There's no doubt that their policies are cyanide to this republic. In closing, Dr. Roberts, and of course your great new website, well, it's been out 6 months or so, really nice. A lot of great info there, paulcraigroberts.org, and we carry your fine articles every other day when you write them. Final point. I think it's positive, though, that we're seeing 2, 3, 4, 5 million guns sold a month, and they have questionnaires, and they say, I fear the government. I don't trust them. I don't believe in them anymore. Yeah, I mean, in a way, as long as people know that's the hijacked government, and we offer a good solution, I think that really shows that people have finally woken up. Everybody I talk to, including police, military, you name it, they say that most people they know are finally starting to wake up. Do they know as much as you do or others? No. But they're beginning the process of awakening. Your comments on the gun sales?
Well, you know, I agree with what you said. However, I think an armed population is inconsistent with a police state. So I don't know how long the police state and Homeland Security are going to tolerate an armed population. I just don't know. You know, the only protective amendment left of the Constitution is the Second Amendment. All the others are gone. So how can you have the Second Amendment if you can't have habeas corpus or due process? So and
sir, you know history. That's what happened in the lead-ups in 1765 up to 1775, was they took all the rights an Englishman had, and they said, hey, we're Englishmen. We would have these rights in England. Our Magna Carta, you've taken it here. And the British government, the police, the paramilitary said, we're coming to take your guns. And that's when it started. And I think that's where the day they actually try this is when the Civil War starts.
Well, you know, but we're not organized, Alex. Everybody's atomized. At least when the British came against the colonists, there was organization on the part of the colonists. There's none today. We're not organized. And the efforts some years ago to have a militia, they all failed because they were all infiltrated by federal agents. And so I just don't know if that's right. I mean, it's fine with me if it is, and I can be hopeful, but people, as far as I can tell, are not organized, and a lot of them that are collecting guns are really, they still think there's a Muslim threat, and the Muslims are going to get them, or some other racial entity, or it's not a uniform awareness of where the real threat is.
But it is a reservoir that we can fully awaken. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the military, they're waking up. But I agree with you. We need to really, people generally, though, in a manifesto of liberty, they know who the enemy is. They know who did this. And as the persecution and arrest and disappearances begin, that's where they plan to go. There will be resistance because people won't have a choice. And the enforcers, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn talked about, what would have happened if when the enforcers went out, the secret police to grab people, if folks would have stood up. And I think it's that simple idea of total resistance. Individually, leaderless resistance can't be stopped. And if 1% of 200 million, and that's what it's up to now, gun owners, resist, that's 2 million people. And so all someone has, yeah.
I think the time to be optimistic is when the handful of cops beating up some hapless person are set upon by the large number of bystanders. And the cops are beat up or killed instead of the innocent person. I think when the people start responding to the police with force, they could very easily overcome the police simply because of the disparity in numbers. When that starts happening, then we can say the people really have woken up and really have had enough. Like in Greece, the people were throwing Molotov cocktails at the police. They were trying to kill them.
And they beat them, too. That's yeah.
And so I think...
They haven't been drinking fluoride, Doc. Can you imagine if the government tried to act like this, say, 100 years ago, what would have happened?
It would have been short-lived government.
Yeah, we've been on a steady diet of...
in the past, but usually they put them down like the Whiskey Rebellion was put down with the Army. So, you know, they break all the rules and employ troops against the people when they feel they need to. So, I don't know. It remains to be seen how bad things get. I think you've got to have people quite desperate here before they actually take on the government. And they're not going to get that desperate suddenly. It's going to be a drawn-out process.
Well, a lot of police I talk to are actually getting it now and are criticizing the cases of people like Thomas Kelly, who they tortured to death for fun. And I've seen in Latin America, when the police start beating somebody up, everybody runs in and attacks them. But again, they haven't been drinking fluoride, eating GMO, and you know, watching 10 hours of television a day. Thank you so much for talking to us, Dr. Roberts. It's great having you.
Glad to be with you, Alex.
Thank you, sir. We're going to come back and talk to callers for a while, and then coming up later, we got Congressman Jones joining us. 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Some calls coming up straight ahead, prisonplanet.tv. Don't forget, I'll be on television tonight, 7 o'clock, prisonplanet.tv, 15-day free trial right now. Congressman Walter Jones is coming up with the impeachment of Obama. Right now, let's go to Frank in New York. Frank, you're on the air. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Alex. A most enjoyable interview with Dr. Roberts. Alex, it's been a while since I've spoken to you. I guess about a year and a half, and I listen to you regularly. But you have an amazing group of callers, so it's getting more and more difficult to, get in touch with you. But I wanted to say this. I think now it's time for people to reread the Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn to at least understand what totalitarian oppression is in a contemporary setting. And also, I'm very concerned about the recent statements regarding Russia and China, specifically Russia taking preemptive action to remove the threat of the American missile shield in Poland and the Czech Republic.
Oh, that's the thing, is the rhetoric is going off the chart to above Cold War levels between China, Russia, and the United States. And you mentioned authoritarianism. A lot of good old boys are like, oh, that's fine, I don't mind if we have any rights. Authoritarianism is almost always hellishly poor. I mean, they ruin the economy. Tyranny is not cute. I know Hollywood makes it look fun, but I'll assure you, ladies and gentlemen, it's not. They will gut this country. What are your other points?
Well, I wanted to say this, Alex, that it destroys the spirit. And I don't just mean necessarily the soul or a religious spirit, but the Geist, or the spirit or the will within everyone. And it's a very demoralizing experience. And the 20th century has taught us that in profound ways.
Well, that's why I say liberty or death, because I'm not going to be living in that world. I'm going to beat these people. We're going to beat them, or I'm going to die trying. Liberty or death. Victory or death.
I have to say, Alex, your documentaries are superb. I tried linking up with you in September 11th, 2006, but you were quite busy, I guess, with the police and things in New York. But hopefully, at some point, we'll get together. And
Frank, I recognize your voice. You've called over the years. Well, a decade or so. Thank you, Frank. George in Connecticut, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, yes, Alex. I'm wondering if you can get one of your talented people to make up a sign that we could use for the university students to get down to Bilderberg. It may occupy Bilderberger. These are the people who gloated over taking down our economy. And so in what year, I forgot the original year, and maybe some of the other elements, we could have that up there somehow, and then they could download it and print it out in every
No, that's a great idea. I'm gonna tell my graphics folks to come up with whatever the standard printout sign size is, graphic, or volunteers can do it, and we'll post a Bilderberg coverage section ahead of time because it's getting close, only a few weeks away now, like a week and a half, and we're going to be there covering Bilderberg. I'm going to be there in person for 4 days in Chantilly, Virginia, and yes, we need to get everybody out there with the signs, like Bilderbergs. We're on to you. We got your number, Bilderberg. You're the enemy. You're the threat. I mean, some simple slogan. We also need to all call the prostitute media and let them know that we're fully aware of the fact that they never cover this event.
One other thing, I was thinking, I saw these very cheap little remote control planes, like for $20, $25. If we could all get those and fly it at them, and maybe get little tiny microphones, these microphones and micro video cameras with also audio.
Right, now you're talking. Let me stop you. I'll just go ahead and let this out. We are looking, and it's legal and lawful, but it's just the fun of it, at getting one of those 4 helicopter blade systems. Looks like a flying saucer. They're about $300. It's got cameras on it. It's controlled by your iPad. And that way, when they're driving in, we'll have drones. Citizen Drone Air Force. So I'll go ahead and announce that. Everybody, bring your remote control drones. We're going to buzz David Rockefeller. Well, they've tried to have a media blackout on it, but it's failed, and he's getting more co-sponsors. It's clearly in the Constitution that it's illegal. And Congressman Walter Jones, currently serving the 9th term in Congress for North Carolina, joins us. He has introduced legislation that if Obama launches another war, which he wants to put physical troops in, back them up in Syria, that the impeachment proceedings will kick in. We've already seen it in Libya. Obama says he has UN authority. This is a short segment, long segment coming up, then he's got to go to a vote. Congressman, tell us about the bill, the progress, and why this bill is needed. And again, thank you for introducing it and standing up for the Constitution, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, Alex, thank you very much. A couple of months you gave me an opportunity to talk about HCON Resolution 107, and I really need your help. And more important, I want the listeners to your show to pick up the phone and call their members of Congress and ask the members of Congress to join in this effort to make sure that Congress meets its constitutional responsibility and not allow a President of the United States on their own decision to just bypass Congress and bomb a country, as you made reference to Libya, and you were exactly right. This bill right now, and being on your show, I was on the LaRouche show over the weekend, and we're going to do as many shows as possible. We need the listeners to pick up the phone and call their member of Congress right there in the district office, whatever state they're in, and say, I want my congressman to go on HCON Resolution 107, and that's what we need to happen. We need a hearing, and we do have the ear of the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. His name is Lamar Smith from Texas, and we've had a lot of interest, thanks to you and others, from the state of Texas about this constitutional issue. So we would like to get a hearing sometime in July. And, Alex, the way this place works on any issue, you've got to get a hearing before the committee moves it to the floor. And I think if we could get a hearing with 2 or 3 panels of experts on the Constitution, I think we could really convince Congress that we need to move this resolution forward. So being on your show is very special, and I appreciate it so much.
Oh, are you kidding, sir? We want to thank you for having the courage to bring forward this and to work with Ron Paul's office, I know that his presidential campaign advisor, constitutional scholar, Bruce Fine, constitutional lawyer, helped draft it. It's absolutely constitutional. We're about to go to break and come back and go over those areas. And then if you've got phone numbers or who we should call, who specifically should we talk to?
We've got phone numbers, and we'll share that in the next break.
Amazing. We're about to go to break in about a minute. Separately, explain to people why it's unconstitutional for a president to launch a war without a congressional approval.
Well, it's pretty explicit in the Constitution, and we have bypassed this for so long, going back to the Korean War, and it's in Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution. And Alex, I tell you, I was with the group in 1999, a couple of Democrats, but mostly Republicans. We went to the federal courts on President Clinton deciding to go into Kosovo and bomb Kosovo. The courts threw it back out because the courts always say, well, Congress has the authority to cut the budgets when you go to war. Well, we never do that. Then again, in last year, Dennis Kucinich and I were the two leads, and two Republicans, Ron Paul being one, and two Democrats. So they made three Democrats, counting Dennis, and three Republicans, counting me, Walter Jones, with Jonathan Turley. We went to the courts again on Libya. We thought we had an excellent opportunity, legally speaking, and the courts kicked it out and says, no, you've got the authority to cut the funding. And Congress will never cut the funding, and I'm not going to be critical, but when you got kids over there giving their life for a country, you would hate to think, well, if I don't vote for this, they might not get the ammunition they need to defend themselves.
But that's kind of like the chicken or the egg, because if you're sending them into a fraudulent war to begin with, in the whole war, you won't need the ammo. Stay right there, Congressman. We're going to come right back on the other side and break all this down and give out some phone numbers to try to get this bill out there on the floor. Representative Walter B. Jones, congressman from North Carolina, is our guest, and he is the man who introduced the legislation to pass a law that simply enforces the Constitution, that if Obama launches one more military operation and tells Congress openly, I don't need any authorization from you. Because since the police action of the Korean War, they don't call it a declaration of war, but still they get a congressional authorization and funding, and Congress gives the go-ahead. And for those that don't know, the president isn't even the commander-in-chief until the war is declared, and then he's the executive. The Congress says, here's the money, here's the enemy, here's what you do. Now you go out and command them, George Washington, basically, okay? That's what happens. Now it's just commander-in-chief, and the Congress doesn't count, and they operate like potted plants or a ceremonial, vestigial, something of a bygone age. And we saw the spectacle. I'm going to play a video clip of this coming up after the congressman speaks some, because he needs our help, and we need to help him because we're all Americans in this together. And he's had the courage to do this against these criminals, because it is criminal to launch a war without congressional approval. It's treason. But the point is, we saw the spectacle a few months ago of the Secretary of Defense and others saying, hey, we don't need you anymore. We have the UN authority. And Obama's letter saying, hey, I don't just do this on my own. He went even further. We have the UN saying so. Unbelievable. Now, Representative Jones has introduced a piece of legislation, and he's going to give you the number, everything about it, and he needs your help to get it rammed out of committee, okay, because they're trying to procedurally block it. You notice you're seeing a media blackout on this, so media across the country, you need to have Congressman Jones on, and people need to get, when Ron Paul's on, ask him about this, because Ron Paul's supporting it. And his head policy advisor helped write this, constitutional lawyer Bruce Fine. Congressman, you've got the floor. Thank you so much for coming on with us. What are we facing right now, and how can we get the Constitution enforced?
Alex, thank you for your comments, and you really nailed it, but let me add to those as well. As I mentioned earlier, I was part of a group that in 1999 went to the federal courts by saying President Clinton should not have bypassed bomb Kosovo, excuse me, and he really did bypass Congress in a way. And then Dennis Kucinich and I and Ron Paul, we went to the federal courts a year ago with Jonathan Turley, professor from George Washington University, constitutional lawyer, to say to the federal courts, Obama should not have gone to Libya the way he did. He bypassed the Constitution, in our opinion. and he bypassed Congress. And that's why this is so important. We need to have a debate. This is a vehicle for debate. It's H-Con Resolution 107. In fact, your listeners can just say HCR 107. HCR 107. And let me read very briefly the title, Expressing the Sense of Congress that the use of offensive military force by a president without prior and clear authorization of an act of Congress constitutes an impeachable high crime and misdemeanor under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution. And Alex, if your listeners would please write down this number, it's 202-224-3121. Let me repeat one more time. 202-224-3121. That is the United States Capitol switchboard. All the listeners have to do is to call that number and say, I would like to speak to Congressman X. And then they would put them into the office of Congressman X. And the person that answers the phone, what that individual should say is, I am so-and-so, this is my congressman, I want to ask him to join HCR 107 and help Congress get the nerve it needs to defend the Constitution when this country goes to war. It's not fair to our military, it's not fair to men and women in uniform, and it's not fair to the taxpayer when we have a president, I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican, that bypasses Congress to go to war. Let's go back to what the Constitution requires is a declaration of war.
Congressman, I want to continue on this line with people. Folks, you need to call and tell them to get behind this resolution, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. This obviously is extremely newsworthy that Ron Paul, yourself, and others have done this. And the fact that there's been almost no media coverage since you first did this, what, a month and a half ago or so, and time sure flies, shows that they're scared of this genie getting out of the bottle. This is a big deal that not only did he launch the war in Libya, but when it was brought up, he put out a letter saying the UN gives me authority. I mean, that is beyond just launching a war and the president doing it on his own, which is totally unconstitutional. But it's the UN doing it, and it clearly violates Article 1, Clause 8, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. Again, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. Clearly, Congress is over all of this. That's not our opinion. It's a fact. And so it's even worse for the president to do this and say the UN gave him the authority. Now there's all sorts of stuff going on backing al-Qaeda. Even the LA Times admits al-Qaeda is being funded by the West to attack Assad. I'm not saying the Syrian regime's good guys, but compared to al-Qaeda, how is this not a bigger news issue?
Alex, you're exactly right. I had bought the book, and I would recommend it to many of your listeners. It's called Funding the Enemy, How U.S. Taxpayers Bankroll the Taliban. It's by Douglas Wissing, W-I-S-S-I-N-G, Wissing. And it continues to show, that's why this H-Con Resolution 107 is important. Once we go to war, we forget the obligation and the commitment to the troops and to the American people by just spending money we don't have. We've already spent $1.3 trillion in Afghanistan and Iraq. That's not being paid for by Congress. That is on the credit card waiting to be paid for by the next generation. That's why H-Con resolution is so important, because 107 will make Congress debate its role. We have forgotten our role when it comes to war, and that's what this is all about. And you feel strong about it, I feel strong about it.
Well, again, think of how immoral it is to make troops serve more than one tour, some are in their 6th, 7th, or 8th. Suicides at all-time records, outpacing even deaths from the conflict. And we're there 11 years. All of this is going on, and it's all about the contractors and these interests making money. They just want it to go forever. This is a completely sick joke, and it was never even declared. And we can't ever seem to get out of it. And then meanwhile, Obama wants to start all of these new wars. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's HCR 107, Concurrent resolution. Get behind it. Call Congress, 202-224-3121. What do we need to do to get this out of committee, Congressman?
Well, we're getting a lot of, the more members we can get on the bill. I have spoken and written to the chairman, Lamar Smith from Texas, who I think is friendly to the issue, but I want him to feel the pressure of the people, forget me, feel the pressure of the people from around this country that want the Constitution protected and want the Constitution to be used if ever we're going to commit our young men and women to die.
Well, sure. I mean, I notice a lot of these mainline Republican radio shows, they just think it's patriotic to be behind wars, so they're actually supporting Obama in all these wars. You would think that they would want to cover a move to impeach Obama for saying the UN gives the president orders. I mean, he's on record. I mean, I say start impeachment right now. Why not just go right into impeachment proceedings and see if the media tries to ignore that?
Well, you know, Alex, along the lines of what you're saying, Secretary of Defense Panetta spoke before the Armed Services Committee about 3 weeks ago, and Randy Forbes from Virginia and I was in line before Randy to ask the question, and I piggybacked on this HCON 107, and then Randy had a very fine question for Mr. Panetta, and you're right. Basically, what he says, well, we have to talk with our friends from coalition friends before we come to Congress. I mean, for God's sakes. I mean, how sad and how tragic is that thought process?
Sir, the media didn't cover it. A few months ago when he did it in the Senate, it got attention. You're saying he repeated what he said 2 months ago?
Yeah, he did about 3 weeks ago in the Armed Services Committee. Absolutely.
Wow, so we can just look that up on C-SPAN. That's going to be important news. That shows the incredible news blackout. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, you're right, and that's why thank you and everyone else has taken an interest in HCR 107, because I want the American people to understand they can control Congress by saying, Congress, live by the Constitution, what Ron Paul's been preaching for years, what you've been preaching for years. And this is just a small step in protecting the Constitution. That's all this is about. You
were bringing that up to me during the break. You talked about it some on air, Congressman. But, I mean, again, you guys have gone to the courts, and they say, look, you've got the authority. Stop asking us.
Yeah, you're right. That's where the fallacy comes in, and the federal courts believe that Congress has the authority to stop a war by cutting the budget. And in fairness to members of Congress, and I was this way at one time myself, you don't want to cut the budget because you know those troops over in a foreign country need ammunition to fight. And if you got them over there, unless you're going to bring them home, you got to give them the ammunition. And that's why, again, I greatly appreciate this. I'm just sick and tired of being in a Congress that advocates its responsibility to the executive branch, especially when it comes to war.
Well, it's illegal, sir, as you know. It's unconstitutional.
It's illegal, you're right. But we're partially to blame. That's the reason I put this in there. I want Congress to say, by God, we are given this responsibility by the Constitution, and we're going to meet our constitutional responsibility. We haven't done that since World War II.
And it's getting worse.
Absolutely.
To where now the president doesn't even get any type of resolution, not as a declaration, and now he says the UN's the boss. We should make this the big issue, bipartisan. Every congressman or woman, when they go out to give speeches in their district, folks, go out and confront them and say, when are you going to do your job? That is what's important. We got to get behind Representative, Member of Congress, Mr. Jones, right now. We've got to get behind this legislation. HCR 107, 202-224-3121. You call your member of Congress right now and you tell them you get behind the Constitution. We'll be right back in a final segment with our guests. Stay with us. We'll cover some other key areas of what's happening. Well, Congressman Jones has notified us that 3 weeks ago, we're going to get the video, maybe even on the nightly news tonight or on the radio tomorrow, we'll have it here for you, asked the same questions of the Secretary of Defense. And he said the same thing. Yeah, no, we got to check with allies. We got to get the authority from the UN. I don't know if we'll ever come to you to see what you think. They're like, so you're saying you don't get that authority from us? No, we don't. And Obama has put out a letter saying, oh, yeah, Congress isn't involved in wars. That is, of course, completely upside down. So here's a quick clip of that. We're going back to Congressman Jones, who is moving forward with legislation that can begin the impeachment of Obama if he tries this again. Here's a clip from a few months ago where Panetta told the Senate that. I can't play the whole thing. He says it over and over again, but here's a quick snippet.
I think that you can act without Congress and initiate a no-fly zone in Syria without congressional approval.
You know, again, our goal would be to seek international permission, and we would come to the Congress and inform you and determine how best to approach this, whether or not we would want to get permission from the Congress. I think those are issues we would have to discuss as we decide what to do here.
Well, I'm almost breathless about that, because what I heard you say is we're going to seek international approval, and they will come and tell the Congress what we might do, and we might seek congressional approval.
No, well,
I want to just say to you, that's a big dish. Wouldn't you agree? You've served in the Congress.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree that that's would be pretty breathtaking to the average American? So would you like to clarify that?
But I've also served with Republican presidents and Democratic presidents who has always reserved the right to defend this country if necessary.
Okay, there you go. Spins it that the UN ordering the president around is patriotic and the Congress isn't. That was an amazing little response, and Panetta smiles. He knows full well that's illegal, Congressman Jones.
You're right, and I tell you, Alex, we were in the process of drafting this. Again, Bruce Fine helped me with this, which you've already acknowledged. But when I heard that exchange with Senator Sessions from Alabama and Defense Secretary Panetta, I said, we're going to drop that bill next week, and we did. It's just absolutely the arrogance of any administration, and I mean Republican or Democrat, any administration, to think that they have the authority based on international law and understanding instead of the Constitution. That is just not acceptable in America. That's what.
Well, that's right. Bush, for the ill-fated Iraq situation, I'm not defending him, but he went and at least got a resolution, and Congress then got the funding. This is just a slap in the face. Hey, you're not even in the equation anymore. Shut up.
And Alex, there's a concern up here by Ron Paul and others, and myself included, that this president could be encouraged to go into Iran or be supportive of an invasion of Iran. And I've always said, listen, I got great respect for Israel. If Israel feels like they must protect themselves, then fine. But I cannot see this country that's financially broke, known as the United States of America, getting involved in these kind of situations, and especially if they bypass the Constitution.
And you've got news for us, Ron Paul, and you're going to support it. He's got a resolution tomorrow. Tell us about that. Yeah, he's going to have an amendment. We're debating the Armed Services Bill called the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. And Ron Paul's going to have an amendment today or tomorrow that will basically say nothing in this NDAA bill gives any authority to attack Iran. And it's that simple. Nothing in this bill that we're going to pass gives any authority to attack Iran. It's a multi-page bill. That's the reason he's doing it. It's like 300 pages. And it's just a protection amendment. It's what he's doing, and God bless my friend Ron Paul. Sure, because it's got some of that sanction stuff in there last time I checked, and they can probably use that to then claim that force is involved to enforce them. I mean, they call dropping bombs on Libya and helping al-Qaeda humanitarian aid. There's no telling what they'll do. And Alex, you and your listeners know what we have done in these foreign countries. We are creating a worse situation. I'm not for dictators. I'm not for despots. But for God's sakes, if you're going into an area and you're going to make things worse, then you need to think about your policy before you do it. Amazing. Congressman Jones has introduced legislation. He needs your help to get it rammed through and out onto the floor. HCR 107-202-224-3121. Everybody call right now. Sir, we got about 30 seconds. Final comment. Well, I always appreciate what you do to educate the American people. I appreciate our men and women in uniform, and I will close by asking God to please bless our men and women in uniform. Let's bring them home, God. Help bring them home, and let's rebuild America, and God bless America. A republic, not an empire. Congressman Walter B. Jones, thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you, my friend. Bye-bye. Thank you. A real gentleman, a real patriot. We had a Congress full of guys like that, we'd have our country back. Stay with us. More straight ahead, your phone calls, and a ton of news. Okay, I haven't gotten to some of the most important news. I was looking through my stacks here. I'll do that after I take a round of calls. Fukushima to blame for mysterious illnesses sickening hundreds of flight attendants and killing wildlife all over Alaska. That's in the mainstream news, but they question mark it. Now the people flying in aircraft in that area are having their hair fall out. This is on record. We're going to be getting into that, just a bunch of other news. But right now, let's go through your calls as quickly as we can. Carl, Steve, Adam, Richard, Steve, and others. Carl in Oregon, thanks for holding her on the air.
Brother, this is your old buddy calling you from FEMA Region 10.
Aren't you glad you got regions and not states? I mean, that's freedom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bow down right today and just write my Federal Reserve overlords and say, thank you, sir. May I have some more tyranny?
Well, that's because they're good people. I mean, and drink some more fluoride water, too. It's good for your teeth.
Hey, double think. Absolutely. SOS. SOS. I need a favor from you, Alex.
Save our souls. What?
I don't know if you can do this for me or not. If you can, I'll take it off air. But if not, I'll have to contact Jordan Maxwell.
I don't know what that means, but just go ahead. We'll call Jordan Maxwell. Go ahead.
Okay. Fritz is our local person here, our local researcher. He lives here in town, but he's hard to get a hold of. I don't know if I can reach him or not. If you want to hold me over to the other side of the break.
Sir, I don't know what you're... Just tell me what you're talking about. I have no idea.
Okay. I called you about 3-4 months ago, and I told you about my church perhaps has been co-opted by a Jesuit order of COINTEL against people.
Well, a lot of the big denominations have been taken over by different groups. They have the World Council of Churches. I mean, most churches, if they're official mainline churches, the preacher is given a doctrine to teach, and it's basically New World Order.
Right, exactly. But what I need to do is, he told me, I sat it in his church office, and I talked to him for over 2 hours. And he told everything I talked to him about. He tried to debunk everything I was trying to talk to him about. And he said, I'm welcome for you to give me some proof or evidence. Okay? Show me some proof. All right? I say, I'll do that. I'll do the best I can to go out and see if I can get some.
I remember your call now, and you brought him info about the New World Order, and he basically said, don't worry about it. And then now you bring up Jordan Maxwell and Fritz Springmeier. How can I help you? I mean, what can I do for you?
Okay, if you can't do it to me, give it to me.
What is it? No, just tell me. What is it?
I just need to get an email address, some way I can publish this person, that I can contact him to get information from him, because he's our local source. He's like our Alex Jones of Portland, Oregon.
Listen, I appreciate your call. I need to get Fritz Springmeier back on about a bunch of stuff anyways. So we'll set up Fritz Springmeier sometime next week for an hour, and I'll ask him on air if he wants to give out a contact point. And I'm sure he will. So next week, Fritz will be on if he can do it, and we'll ask him if he wants to give out a contact. But, man, I can barely run my own life. I mean, I get so busy being here at work that I forget to pay bills sometimes at home. I mean, the trash piles up, you know what I mean? Literally. So I got a lot of honeydews to do. I mean, I'm not like some omnipresent person that can operate as the Capitol switchboard and go, let me put you right through to Fritz Springmeier. What, you need Jordan Maxwell? Here it is. Yeah, here we go. And again, I'm not mad at the caller. It's just that people always preface, well, if you can't do it, fine. Then, okay, what is it? Well, if you can't do it, fine, but I'll need to, and it just goes on and on and on and on. I understand. Hey, I want to get in touch with Fritz Springmeier. He may know about infiltration of my church. You know how to do it. Yeah, I'll talk to him and see if he wants to give out his email on air. Boom, done, over. I'm just frustrated because I got all this news I want to get to, and I want to take your calls. But we don't screen your calls, which makes it interesting. But then it gets a little weird sometimes just because it's like personal phone calls on air. Let's go ahead and talk to Steve in Florida. Steve, you're on the air.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon, Alex. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for putting the information out there about the longevity products. I've been using the Tangy Tangerine, and I just got the Rebound. I haven't used it yet, but I'm getting ready to run in a marathon, so I'm looking forward to incorporating the Rebound. But the Tangy Tangerine, I can see how people would lose weight with it, because it's definitely an appetite suppressant, because it satisfies you at the cellular level with all the minerals and vitamins that you need.
Well, look, I'm trying to get in shape, and I know the globalists have adulterated the food, and the food's grown in most areas with hardly any minerals or trace elements. So I did research, found longevity, we discount it at InfoWarsTeam.com. I only promote what I believe in, and that's why we're promoting it. What else is on your mind today?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I have a suggestion as far as what we refer to these globalists as, and I referred to them as this myself, as the global elite. However, the word elite means like the best of the best.
Yeah, we should call them. We should call them the wickedest of the wicked.
Well, they're the worst of the worst. So what I would suggest is call them the global delete for two reasons. They are subjecting us to a technocracy and want to delete us all through eugenics. But eventually, these guys themselves are going to get what they've given out. They will be deleted because Jesus says when he comes back, the beast and the false prophet are going to be taken and cast alive into the lake of fire. So they're going to be deleted permanently.
Amen to that, brother. Well, that's why they try to play God. Everything they do is a counterfeit of creation and of the creator of that creation. They say they want to play God. They think they're going to become God. Ray Kurzweil, all of them. It's the same deal. They're going to take over. They're having us pay them through Apple, Google, all of it, and Sony and the rest of it for the equipment globally with spy systems built into it to track and enslave us in taxes. It's a big joke. The entire technocracy is going in and they're bragging about it. Can you imagine 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if Bush, when he got caught doing warrantless wiretapping of citizens, how much trouble he got in? Should have gone to jail. It's illegal. Now the CIA director goes, yeah, we listen to everything you do, ha, 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 on TV. And you're like, yeah, all the appliances have tech to watch you. Yep, it's true. You don't have a Fourth Amendment. I mean, it's a confession of their criminal activity. They now admit all over the country, the feds are instructing schools to take children's DNA without their parents telling them. Same thing in England. I remember 5, 6 years ago, they would have kids march in elementary school and go enroll in a retina scan, a thumbprint. You're James Bond spies now. Don't tell mommy and daddy. A lot of the kids get into the role playing, and then the schools would deny they were doing it, but then the curriculum got released, totally turning the kids against the parents. The government is out of control. It's like the guy that called in yesterday, and the 2 off-duty cops were talking about, yeah, I choked this guy for no reason. Yeah, he was begging for his life. Yeah, we broke this guy's arm. Man, I just love beating people. And the guy's like, my gosh, I was actually sitting there listening to him. Yeah. That's who they want. The military wants gangbangers and criminals. The police want that. They're building an army of evil. Every criminal government does it. It's happening. It's real. And they've got everybody in these peer pressure systems, the public, the police, everybody, just to get acclimated because they do it incrementally. A little more, a little more, a little more. Pretty soon you're in bad shape and we're there. I mean, impeachment proceedings have begun against Obama. It's never in the news. Re-education camp documents to arrest us for our political views and put us in brainwashing camps are confirmed by the Army. Zero news coverage. Zero. Because not just that the media is controlled, but most of these alternative media and radio hosts and others, they always were told this wasn't real. So even as it's now admitted, they still don't want to cover it because it might look, quote, kooky. People never want to believe. The stories were coming out about the Soviets killing tens of millions, and our media said it's not true. Uncle Joe is a nice guy. Uncle Joe was what they called Joseph Stalin. Don't look up. I've gone to the microfilm. I've done articles on it years ago. I ought to do that. I ought to dig those out. And we showed articles from the 1940s going, oh, it's not true. They have re-education camps over there. He's Uncle Joe. He loves America. And then people that got concerned about that and said our own military and government's funding him, oh, they were the conspiracy kooks. They were the bad people. Well, now we know. Joseph Stalin killed over 30 million people. It's like it's not polite. Oh, now Alex is worried about a big government. So they've got some re-education camps. So the TSA setting up highway checkpoints is sticking their hands down our pants. What's the big deal? I mean, come on. Don't be so alarmist. Everything's all right. I mean, the media says we've had a recovery. Doesn't matter if record numbers of small businesses are shutting down and profits for even big companies are way down. And doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if 90+% of the debt they claim we own is derivatives we've signed on to and it's impossible to pay back anyways. You know what? Thank goodness there's a Bank of the World getting set up, a new corporate world government. But you're still kooky if you believe in world government, though. Yeah, all those folks that believed in the world government, they were proven right, but that makes them even worse. They're alarmist bad people. You know what? Oh, over 90% of the FDA and EPA scientists have gone public 3 separate times and signed letters. They even tried to file lawsuits pointing out that fluoride gives you a massive increase in all sorts of cancers and brain damages people, and it's official. And they even forced the American Medical Association to say under 5 shouldn't take it or be around it. You go to the store, it's water, floss for kids, toothpaste for kids, fluoride, all of it. I mean, it's just incredible, ladies and gentlemen, the crazy land we live in. And then I run into these idiot enforcers of the systems, code enforcers, bureaucrats, cops, whatever, and they got this power trip in their eye and think you're scared of them. And they're like little kids. I'm like, dude, you're wearing a costume. You're wearing a costume. I've snuck into globalist rituals, military operations, death threatened, physically attacked. Sometimes I think about all the stuff I've done, and it's like a joke. It's like a movie. If you made a movie about this, no one would believe it. And you have these, I'm not bragging, I'm just a man who's taken action. And here are these children, after 17 years in the trenches of research and combat with the New World Order in the info war, and spies and death threats and infiltration and everything and lawsuits. And these children think I'm scared of them. No, children, I'm scared of what's happening to you and what's happened to your mind. I'm scared of you not realizing what you're part of and what you're helping conjure. And how you're going to squeal and beg when you're dying 40 years young of cancer you shouldn't have, you stupid idiot. And you're so trusting in the system, you don't even know a friend when you hear them. I have committed to this 110%, and my life is on the line, and I look at children, the yuppies and the trendies that think it's funny. Sometimes I'm in a restaurant, doesn't happen as often, but somebody will walk over and go, is the black helicopter going to get me? Is it going to? I just look at these people, and it's like they think their ridicule gets to me, and it does, but not in the way they think. I'm sad for how pathetic they are. They feel good thinking of people as pathetic. I feel sad when people are pathetic. It makes me feel weak. It makes me see my own weakness. It makes me sad for their family and their ancestors who are probably good people, and the disgrace of the bondage we're going into. The sadness, the patheticness, the dirtiness, the innocence being hurt. I can see the crimes, the pain. I can feel it. I know it. I've seen it historically, and I know it's magnifying. The cries of the innocents reach my soul every day because I'm looking up to God. And I can see the reflection back of the pain that God sees humanity going through because people choose evil. Richard in Kansas, you're on the air.
Wow, after that, I don't even know where to start, Alex.
How you doing today, buddy?
Another day in paradise.
It is paradise, and that's the thing. It's still a great country, still a great world. There's so much good, but good can't see evil. Good is so blind. Childlike goodness. We're a nation of mesmerized children, and we have to rediscover good. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, that's why it's important for people to talk to each other. Don't trust the TV to give you all the facts. Talk to your community. Talk to the people around you. Start getting involved with petitions for anything, whether it's cleaning fluoride out of your water, demanding healthier food in your supermarkets. This is the steps you have to begin with, is talking to other people and getting involved.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. What did you call in about today?
I actually wanted to go ahead and kick back to the fluoride thing you brought up, because I definitely want to thank you for all the exposure you've given to the truth.
Please don't thank me, man.
Issue.
We're in this together. I'm under attack as well. Please do not thank me anymore.
Removing the fluoride is extremely important because while this is in major drinking supplies, most people are going to be that much harder to get through.
Well, no, that's why you can't wake America up, because most of them are brain damaged.
It's a trance-like state. Everyone's in a robotic, zombie-like state. And that's why, honestly, starting with fluoride is honestly a good step, because once you get that out, you actually get people to start listening a little bit better. That's why people should find every single petition to remove fluoride on the internet or in their local communities they can find.
Everybody should fight it themselves or having victories. That's what's even more frustrating. When people keep taking action and hammering the enemy, we always end up winning. We've got the power. That's what's so frustrating. These globalists are like 2-inch, chicken-necked, pus-filled, stinking, cowardly little goblins. And we're like 10,000-foot iron statues. We can just crush them. But instead, we're on our knees begging to the chicken neck. I mean, it's such a joke.
Well, it's honestly entertaining to see even what local officials try to use for excuses on all of these issues.
Because they're not servants, they're officials. You know, you go to government meetings and you watch these nobodies in their little outfits power tripping like birds that want to sit higher in the tree, that they're up there at the dais. It's pathetic. The real exercise of power is a responsibility and a weight. It is so pathetic looking at these people. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's just a cult of Skeletors and Skedis Award winners.
It's crazy. I appreciate your call and actually make out that last part. What did he say?
I was just saying that you're pretty much dealing with a cult of Skeletors and Skedis Award winners. Just listen to what your local officials say.
Yeah, status award winners. That's it.
Like our own health department here tried to tell us when we got our petition on the news for, against sodium fluoride, tried to tell us it was a natural occurring material that would appear in water naturally, even if we didn't put it in there.
No. They lie to you and talk to you like you're a moron. I mean, literally, TSA will ask me where I'm going and try to do their little assessment thing, and I just look at them, and I literally will say things like, it's on record the government controlled the underwear bomber. It's on record that this is all staged. And by the way, you're going to get cancer from those scanners. No, I'm not. And I go, oh, really? You believe the government when you're told to lie to us all day? Stop acting powerful. Please stop acting powerful. And let me tell you, they're dressing down. I haven't flown out of Austin in like 4 or 5 months. I'm told now that state reps, they know who they are and stuff. They are dressing them down. Well, it's on record in San Antonio. They know who they are and go, get over here. You don't like us? Get over here. I mean, they're telling them, you are God. You rule everyone. I mean, they are just, and again, they didn't do it through the police because there's at least some constitutional training there. Just like every authoritarian regime, they go scrape the bottom of the barrel and they find a bunch of idiots and tell them they're God. And that's why they keep flipping out and running around screaming they're God and stripping down naked. If you're a new listener, I'm not joking. In Maryland and California, they strip down naked and begin screaming, I'm God, and then start flopping around the ground. That's NBC News and Associated Press. Look it up. By the way, I have talked to them. We're going to get back into some radiation news. It's funny, I meant to do this plug last hour, and I was about to plug this, and then we're about to get to the radiation news that we'll hit on here in just a second. Like, where did my news go about that? Oh, here it is. Here it is about what's happening in Fukushima. This new dietary supplement, Modoflavin, has come highly recommended from Mike Adams, but then all these other experts I was talking to, and doctors, nutritionists, you name it. Because I was looking at the best system to get extra trace minerals and things, but also to get the iodine so that your thyroid is a lot more healthy. And this special proprietary blend of brown seaweed that they get from an area far away from Fukushima down in New Zealand is the way to go. It is available discounted at Infowars.com, and all the orders also get a free citizen rule book and bumper stickers. And I am now taking this. Weldon, because I was doing research for about 6 months on this. Weldon and others took this and lost weight. It had incredible amounts of energy increase. In fact, I'm going to cut an ad later and have Weldon actually plug it, because we did a lot of research for 6 months because I said, I want to carry one of these seaweed extracts. I want to carry the best. Our research found it's this brand, this system of Modoflavin. I keep mispronouncing it. How do you say it, Chris? Modifyland. And folks, I'm public school educated. But natural dietary supplement, it's got so many attributes to it, and I've just started taking it a week ago. Detoxifies the body from heavy metals, radioactive elements, free radicals, and toxins, boosts the immune system, can help protect against thyroid cancer and other cancers, helps to decrease high blood sugar and cholesterol levels, helps those who are overweight by improving the function of gastrointestinal tract, helps to detoxify smokers from strontium and cadmium. Yeah, it's radioactive to smoke cigarettes, if you didn't know that. Improves the structure of the hair and nails. Oh, that's what Weldon said. It's like crazy. And helps them grow. All natural, no known side effects. You know, I know 2 women personally who had their hair falling out. When they went on longevity products, their hair came back. Literally, because they had the trace elements gone. Well, this is separate from longevity. I'm just bringing you the best stuff I found. It's available at Infowars.com in the online shopping cart, or InfowarsShop.com. InfoWarsShop.com or InfoWarsStore.com will take you right there. Lowest price on it that you're going to find anywhere. And you get the free Citizen Rulebook with it as well. Read all about it for yourself because we've done the research. And, I mean, the guy that wrote When Technology Fails, he's all done research, says it's the best. I mean, it's just so many people in my research, it kept coming up, this type of seaweed. Because it's all good. But this stuff is it. Okay, I'm done. I'm done talking about that. I want to go to break and come back and take a few calls. But where is my news on that? See, I was reading this, it made me think of that. NNSA measuring background radiation over Baltimore, government security news. And they say ahead of government meetings there, they are testing it to see if there's any type of attack or anything coming. It's totally ridiculous. They're worried about that. Meanwhile, and I've shown you this on the FDA's own website, the EPA is the main group that made the ruling, but the FDA also ran with it, saying, oh, this isotope can be 1,000 times stronger, and then this one can be 125 times stronger. They listed dozens and dozens of isotopes. I read it on air. You can look it up, back last year, because it went up in milk and in cabbage and in all this stuff that grows on the surface, lettuce. And so instead of just saying, we better test this stuff and then warn people or ban it for a while like they did after Chernobyl. This is much bigger than Chernobyl. It all blows right across the ocean to us. That's how the trade winds go from Japan. And they're still melting down. There's radiation still coming. I didn't even get to the key part of this. Instead of that, they just say, oh, everything's fine. Meanwhile, Fukushima to blame for mysterious illnesses striking hundreds of flight attendants. It's been confirmed that the sea life, the seals have their hair falling out. There's mass deaths of animals. That's where the main water that had all that radiation is swirling in the currents. It's all hitting Alaska, and now the flight attendants think it's radiation. Their hair's falling out. Yeah, the story's up at InfoWars.com and NaturalNews.com. Fukushima to blame for mysterious illness striking hundreds of flight attendants. Hundreds of Alaskan Airlines flight attendants have filed a formal complaint about uniforms they suspect might be causing their skin to rash and develop lesions. What's wrong with some radiation poisoning? They admit a lot of the aircraft have become radioactive from not just that company, but other airlines. Well, what's wrong with that? And their hair to fall out. Well, that's good for you. Based on the timing of symptoms and their relation to similar symptoms in local marine life and polar bear populations. If you go back to Fukushima a year ago, or now 13, 14 months ago, we showed how the fastest currents that would start hitting Alaska in just 2 months took a year for the water to hit California, southern Canada, northern Mexico, and now that's happening there too. It took a year, took a few months to hit Alaska, and boy, it's bad. When you got a plutonium reactor blowing up and hundreds of thousands of fuel rods, you heard me right, hundreds of thousands. I had that number in my mind, and now I can't remember. Guys, search the term number of fuel rods at Fukushima. I want to say total, it was something like 400,000, ridiculous number, and they were storing them on top of the reactors, and they were blowing up and shooting, and some of them 1.5 miles away into the ocean. Even the New York Times reported 6 months after we broke it. I could watch the video, and I looked at the specs on those reactors, and I found out they were storing them on top, and I said, those are fuel rods. Oh, no, they're not. No, they're not. Had a nuclear physicist on. Yeah, those are fuel rods. Turned out it was right. The point is, I forget the number, and usually my mind knows the exact number, and I want to say I'm wrong on that. No, okay, 3,550 fuel rods. Each reactor building pool holds. No, that was the pools. Oh, I was underestimating. Yeah. Because 5 of the 6 blew up and only 4 really bad. It's 600,000. So they estimate it was 400 and I think 40-something thousand that blew. There it is. 600,000 spent fuel rods. So it's worse than I said. Of course it was. And what's the source on that? Is that AP or Popular Mechanics? Scroll that back down because Popular Mechanics can't believe them. But the Japanese government said that's how many were. Just scroll down so I can see the source on that. I just want to see the top there of the article. That's all I want. It's just the top of the article. That's Infowars.com. But where did we get that from? Go ahead and scroll down. Remember, it was all over the news. Because that graphic right there, that was from, it says read the full report here. Click on that. There you go. Oh, that's an actual government report about the Daiichi power station. Yeah, there you go. That's Tokyo Electric Power Company. That's our source. Well, there you go. All righty there. I said 400 thou, it's 600 thou. But I'm right. It was 400 plus thou. 446,000. That was the number that actually blew sky high. Boom. My brain wasn't working. I apologize. I was having like a HAL 9000. Just a moment, Dave. All right, we are electrochemical computers. You know that. Adam in Puerto Rico, you're on the air. Welcome and thank you.
Yeah, hi, Alex. How are you?
I've gone completely insane. I don't like tyranny. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, me neither. I have an idea for a T-shirt. I was thinking, end the police state. Justice for Thomas Kelly. I forget. Is that the name of the homeless person that was beat up by the police?
Well, he was tortured slowly to death with pleasure, yes.
So I think we should do a T-shirt like that and make something, make a bigger stink, keep people thinking about that and not... They think more about the Trayvon.
I agree. That would be a... Oh, by the way, the Trayvon stuff came out. Turns out Zimmerman's nose was broken, his head fractured, and in the autopsy of Trayvon, his fists were busted, as all the witnesses said. And I'm not saying it's a good thing the guy got shot, but I mean, the point is Zimmerman's telling the truth and is going to get in all this trouble.
Yeah, it's unfair. I have a question. I don't know if this is happening everywhere. I live close to a military base. It's called Fort Buchanan. And they play the military trumpets every day at 6 a.m., 5 p.m., and 10 p.m. And this is something that's begun like a year ago. So I think they're just getting us used to like the military state,
No, that's happening everywhere. There's directives to acclimate the public. It's one thing to have reveille, but now they have military patrolling outside bases all over the country and pulling over slaves. That's us. Unbelievable. Thanks for the call from Puerto Rico.